My name is Trond. I run the Startup Exchange program, which is a service of MIT's Industrial Relations program. And the interesting thing with that is we have, at MIT, had a lot of startups for a long time. And it was almost a mystery, I think, to many people that we weren't even more actively plugging and playing and connecting those two industry in a systematic way. So when this program got up and running less than 2 years ago, I guess it's just been a year and a half, our member companies, the large industry, were more surprised that it wasn't here 10 years ago than they were. So they were very enthusiastic about it. And I think the reason is that when you, as we do, have about 1,100 startups now in an active portfolio, there's just a lot of stuff to be excited about. And in fact, there's perhaps too much to be excited about. So the question then becomes, how exactly do you structure this interaction? Today, we're not bringing 1,100 startups, but we're bringing a good bunch of them. There are many, many more robotics-oriented startups at MIT than the ones we can show you today. But I wanted to just very briefly say that as Matt and as other speakers will point out today, the use case of robotics and analytics embedded with it and artificial intelligence combined with it, the use cases are kind of exploding. It started with fairly simple things as vacuum cleaners, although you wouldn't believe how difficult it actually was to create a vacuum cleaner. And I know one of our speakers has a little anecdote about that, which I've seen in a TED Talk. They have to pick up all kinds of things and not be fazed by that. Manufacturing, healthcare, drones. You've seen the videos and seen what Qualcomm's working on. But there's a new startup we have called Spice in robotic application of food technology and delivery of food and making food. We'll be hearing about how robots should be more active on the ocean. So what we try to do truly is we do very, very simple things. We just connect people together that are doing stuff on relevant technology topics. So we put on these showcases, and then we bring faculty to you. One of the unique features, I think, of MIT, and I've been very fortunate to meet many of these people. This is Bob Langer. He came to our last event in Mountain View. When someone has 1,100 issued patents and 30-plus startups, and I think those are the 30 that are still alive today. There are many, many more of them that he has co-founded. Clearly, he's not running all these startups, because faculty at MIT have this interesting generosity, but also this perspective that it's not really their role to run a startup. Their role is to foster the startup. And then they want to move on to their research, which is their main thing, and perhaps create another startup. So this happens a lot. And when you have over 170 serial entrepreneurs essentially on campus that are faculty, that are lecturing, this becomes very inspiring. Now, that sounds like perhaps some interesting facts. But if you also take this other fact, there's about 70 entrepreneurship-oriented activities and centers on the MIT campus. Take a guess how many of those were created by an official channel. Just let me get a sense. So there's 70 programs. Take a guess. Are there half and half, student-created and faculty-created programs? Raise a hand if you think more than half were created by faculty in terms of entrepreneurship. Very few. The true answer is that there's only 7 of these programs that are official. The rest of them were started as a student project. They are things like the Sports Analytics Conference. There are things like student entrepreneurship clubs, and there's 63 of those. We just count it, and we put them on a website. So you can plan for innovation all you want, and you can have the best faculty in the world. But in truth, our entrepreneurial ecosystem is just created in collaboration. So these are some of the startups we didn't bring, where, in fact, you see this collaboration. There's an MIT faculty that was a founder, but very, very often the people who run off with it is one of their grad students. Or if the faculty is very connected, they go straight to a VC firm and find a team right away. So there's kind of a model around this. And what we are trying to do is simply create critical mass of these meetups with the right topics at the right time. But we also want to give industry a voice, because every so often when startups come to my door, I realize that what they really need isn't money. They need to understand better the industrial use cases. So there's a very good joint benefit there. Industry is very interested, obviously, in innovation from startups. Many of our startups, as bright as they are, don't have the faintest idea about what your particular problem might be. It's very hard to know what's going on inside of Qualcomm's campus unless you've talked to enough people here. And it probably changes fast. So that's what we do. And when we succeed, we have member companies on the large scale and startup companies, and they join together, like this collaboration that happened last year between Henkel and Dropwise. So that's what we do. There were 83 new startups that we covered last year. Where we try to work is when a startup is just coming out of stealth, when they have like 1 or 2 partnerships, but they really want to show all of industry what they have got. That's when we can help them. And I think that's when it's interesting to meet. These are some of the members that we have engaged so far. We're obviously here to tell you about what we can engage with you on. Industry can then launch partnership opportunities. There's at least 12 of them open right now. So industry will come to us and say, here's what we're looking at right now. We're interested in startups and being matched up with people who are working on these types of technologies. And then we are simply the matchmaker. So sometimes the simple is the best. We'll hear more about autonomy later. We actually have the guy who closed the round for Samsung. He's on the panel. We'll talk more about that later. As Carl said earlier, we have an exciting calendar. Some events will be in California. Most events will be on campus. And then we are also selectively taking this show around the world.